Hi, welcome to Risky Routes, a short interview series telling the stories of moments when travel forces you to grow up and adapt fast. Because risk creates perspective, and perspective creates success. We talk about the chaotic, uncomfortable, borderline bad idea journeys that push people to level up, trust themselves, and take control of their lives. I'm your host, Olivia Goldstein. Today, I'm joined by Dan Strack, who is the COO of AMYNA Systems, which is actually how I got to know him. So, Dan has a proven track record of building high growth businesses by identifying and capitalizing on market trends across multiple sectors, really focusing on long term profitability and sustainability. With over 3 decades of experience in business development, operations management, project management, asset management, compliance risk assessments, and team management, holy cow, Dan has consistently driven success in his ventures. In the 90s, Dan was a sales trader at Spear, Leeds, and Kellogg. He leveraged new technologies to increase operational efficiencies and productivity, contributing threefold increase to trading revenue in just 3 years. He co-founded and managed the program trading desk, generating $80 million in revenue in 2000, which led to the firm's acquisition by Goldman Sachs. From 2000 to 2016, Dan held key roles at Goldman Sachs, including managing director and vice president, playing a pivotal role in growing the firm's equities and algorithmic trading businesses, overseeing both business and technical teams. He established specialized trading desks and led initiatives to strengthen client relationships, boost revenue, and improve operational efficiency. Dan takes a strategic approach to capitalizing on emerging opportunities and is personally invested in a diverse portfolio of businesses in agriculture, hospitality, technology, and financial services. He holds a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science from Loyola University. And before this crazy, successful career in finance, ops, business, Dan, you shared with me, actually at a dinner we had together in Skinny Atlas a year or two ago, about a trip you took to Southeast Asia when you were younger. So would love to learn more about that.
Yeah, so I studied my senior year at Loyola College. Myself and a number of our close friends went to Assumption University in Bangkok, Thailand, which is a all English speaking Catholic school where pretty much no one speaks English and no one's Catholic. Except for us. But there were about I think 15 or 20,000 students. So it was a pretty big school, beautiful campus, great place in the heart of Bangkok. And at a high level, you learn a lot about cultures. And I thought about studying abroad, and I had a Wall Street job waiting for me on when I graduated, and I didn't want to put that in danger. I needed to graduate on time, so. Once I realized that we can, go to Thailand, have this experience, like you can travel abroad to, study abroad in Paris or London or Spain, but that feels like vacation to me. You can always do that later in life. At the time, I thought that. And thankfully, I'm lucky enough, we have done a lot of those trips. But you would never really necessarily go to Thailand. And
Right.
So we had you learn about cultures, you learn about the difference between and appreciate the difference between what we have here in the United States and what they have there. We've talked about sort of the class system where there's maybe you can argue there's a shrinking middle class here in the United States. There is no middle class in Thailand. At least there wasn't 30 years ago, and I'm pretty sure it hasn't changed much. It's either the haves and the normals, and the haves make our rich look kind of poor. And the normals are just gracious if you say hello to them. So, we learned a lot about that, just sort of fundamental life and what's important. And, working at a place like Goldman Sachs and on Wall Street in general, and even in your world today, right?
Right.
We measure success by dollars and cents, by our W-2. And sometimes we measure success and our own personal happiness by those same measurements. And when you spend time with folks who aren't measuring success that way, they're measuring success by family and their true happiness and what they're surrounded by and what they're thankful for. That's something that sticks with you forever. So we had, it was a wonderful trip, and we had I've got a few different stories which we could definitely get into.
Oh my gosh. No, that's awesome. And you're right too. It's like it keeps you grounded, right? It makes you realize like what this is all about. And it's like I see these quotes and these memes all the time that it's like talks about how, nobody likes the guy whose career is his whole personality, right? And it's like you start to realize like what it actually means to like live a meaningful life. And like it doesn't always mean just like having all of the toys and trinkets and everything. It's like about being a good person, being a good family member, caring for others, helping others, like charitable work, etc. So I'm sure you saw like a lot of that. And it's just like people are happy, even though they don't really, you look at them on the surface level, they don't really have anything.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it makes you appreciate what you have, but also like kind of like in a way, like, I don't want to say you're jealous of them, but it's almost like there's a simplicity to it that it's just like they just are appreciative of what they have.
No doubt. And, it even traveling through Bangkok, there are open canals in Bangkok, and the folks who have got more disposable income, especially for commuting,
Right.
travel by klong. And, these are the long boats that you sort of see on TV. And if you've ever been to Thailand, and, it's akin to the canals in Venice, but these are open sewers, really. And there are people living on the klong, and, the kids are swimming and bathing in this water, and, they're happy playing and doing their things, splashing around. But it is something that you sort of look at yourself, where you look at that aghast, and you realize that, you have to make good with what you have.
Oh, absolutely.
And I hearkened back in 2016. I left Goldman. It was, Goldman's the typical place where, they tap you on the shoulder. It's your time to go home now. We'll say you're retiring or whatever. And I wasn't retiring. So I did go home, and to what you were saying before, I did identify myself at that place. I was Dan Strack. I'm a managing director of Goldman Sachs. That's who I am. It was my personality. It was my whole. And, I remember I was feeling a little down on myself when I first got home that day. I quickly rebounded because nobody's crying for me. But my wife had said something like, it doesn't matter. It's just the three of us. It's our son, and wherever we are, that's home. And whatever we do, that this is all that matters, right? We'll move on. And you sort of, you learn those things. And, it was then when I made the decision. And I actually harken back to a specific story in Thailand. I made the decision, I'm not going back to Wall Street. I'm going to let my licenses lapse. I hung on for a little bit. I went on a couple of interviews with the usual suspects that you'd expect to reach out. Yeah. And it was partly the commute. It was partly the job. It was partly, okay, I think I have a skill set. I think I've learned some fundamental things that are transferable. And that's where you sort of have to be both feet in, right? When this, right? With startups, like you can't be half in, you can't be half pregnant. You have to be all in. So a few different businesses, sometimes investments that have been passive with friends and family, a few different businesses that we started from scratch with some friends and family, things that I'd never be able to do at Goldman. We've got a little food truck restaurant business. We've got a distillery. We've got, I sit on the board of a business, perks and benefits company. And
don't forget the farm.
Well, the farm too. Yes, the farm too. But one of the coolest things, when you realize that you're taking this sort of leap, and it reminds me, we went on a, I think it was 2 or 3 week trip in Thailand through the jungle, like stuff you see out of National Geographic, like deep in the jungle. And one of the village folks that lived in one of these villages, we were going to go from village to village, a few of his neighboring villages, and then eventually landed in his village over this, I think it was a 2 week period. And on one part of the trek, we're on elephant back for 8 hours. On another part of the trek, we're on bamboo rafts. Another part of the trek, we're hiking. And I remember, well, first, the funny side note, the elephant, I insisted on riding on the neck of the elephant, and, which is a mistake, by the way. If you have the ability to sit on the chair on the back, sit on the chair. Okay. But I'm on this elephant.
For 8 hours, too.
For 8 hours. I walked like a horseshoe for the rest of the week. But this is like when you're walking, and elephants are amazing creatures. Yeah. So we're walking down this really, really steep hill. and the elephant is consciously going very, very slowly. And then I feel his trunk literally go a wrap around my ankle. Now, I'm imagining Flintstones-esque type of cartoon where all of a sudden I'm just going to be, he's going to flip me off his neck. He was holding me on. It dawned on me when it was happening that's what was happening, but it just blew my mind. And we went up, on a hike after the elephant trip, and then we were on these bamboo rafts down the river going to Dino's village, and that was where we were going to stay for the next couple nights. Dino and his crew are literally making these bamboo rafts out of rope, bamboo, and not even rope. Actually, the bamboos, the leaves.
Yeah.
And he's Father Nash. Loyola College it's now Loyola University. It's much bigger than when I was there, but Jesuit school. So Father Nash was the priest that really ran this program at Assumption University. So he knew Dino very well for years because he had done this with other students through the years. And Dino has this joke. So he speaks mostly Thai, but he speaks a little bit of English.
Yeah.
And he told Father Nash to explain to everybody, these rafts are guaranteed, don't worry about it, they're guaranteed to last 6 hours. And in the middle, there's a tripod where we put all of our backpacks and stuff.
Yeah.
And then Father Nash says, the issue is that the trip is 8 hours. So at the end of the trip, the raft certainly is falling apart, and we're in waist deep water, and but you're making along, and it in the business context, it's kind of like sometimes you need to take that leap, and you might not quite get there, but you got to figure out how to do it on the fly. Yeah, and whether that's I know plenty of people, and we've done it ourselves with the distillery and with our food truck business before we got steady. You're maxing out credit cards and you're doing whatever you can do to get to that end, that last mile, that last little tranche, until you can get to solid ground. And we did, right? Both metaphorically and physically.
Yeah. Okay. So did the boat or the raft fall apart?
It didn't completely fall apart, but we were up to our chests pretty much in water by the time we got to the village.
That's hilarious. Well, so in that scenario, at least you had a heads up. You're like going into it. I know that this might fall apart and not work, but we're still going to do it, figure it out, and adapt once we get to that point, what the best solution is, which is actually like very applicable. And especially now that you're so active with startups and businesses at different stages too, it's like skill sets that you need as an entrepreneur building, right? It's like you have a vision in your mind. It might not work out. It might fall apart, but it's like, how can you kind of like adapt to the circumstances when things change too and continue to push through?
Yeah, it's interesting because, when you're at a place like Goldman, a big institution, and I do mean this as a joke a little bit, but seriousness, you do get institutionalized, right? Yep. Like you have this ability to take vacation. And a lot of times when you take vacation, the phone's still ringing, you still got to have your back in the day, BlackBerry, you're sort of tied, but you do have some sort of a support system where it's not all on you, as long as you're managing your team, you're right, and the place is being managed well, where, welcome to Small Business 101, there is no paid time off, right? Like there's no PTO, there's no vacation time. Hey guys, I'm going to be out for 2 weeks. That doesn't exist. The business stops if you're not there. So, it's an important differentiator. And I think sometimes that's the hardest thing to get over. It's funny. I do some consulting work with some folks, and I was talking to an old partner at Goldman. He's retired now, but he does a lot of consulting work now. And we said the same thing. You get institutionalized. You've got the support system of this robust organization behind you. And then when you're out on your own, you're kind of out on your own. Which
the safety net is pulled out from underneath you. It's like your successes and your losses sit on your shoulders squarely.
It's equal part scary and equal part liberating. Which sort of makes it tolerable. Like you can do it. You know what I mean?
Right. So you have a unique experience, right? Because you obviously started your career for many, many, many years on Wall Street and then kind of turned into the flip where you're then like looking to be more of like an active like builder in different types of businesses, looking at investing, etc. Like for people that are maybe getting, I don't want to say burned out by like corporate careers, but like kind of looking for a shift, because I have these conversations all the time with people that are intrigued by startups, intrigued by owning their own business. Like, what sort of advice would you offer them?
So in hindsight, I wish I started dabbling in small businesses earlier in my career. I probably never really had the opportunity, because when you're at a place like Goldman or in these big institutions, it's hard to do that. Both from a compliance perspective, conflict of interest perspective, but also just the time spent. But I would say try to get involved in something as soon as you possibly can. And I also look at life a lot differently now. When I was at Goldman, I thought I'll be at Goldman until I retire, and then I'm going to retire. And I don't know what retirement looks like, but I look at it now and I laugh at myself in hindsight saying, I'm never retiring. Like, I have no interest in retiring. Like, that's not about retiring. I just want to do something that I enjoy until I can't do it anymore. And so with that said, I feel like everybody needs like 3 jobs. Like, you sort of need 3 jobs. You need sort of like that thing that you can feel like, okay, this thing I might be able to jettison one day when my passion project takes off, but it's paying the bills, right? And then you have that sort of passion project that it might be a hobby that you can monetize. And maybe that third thing is that moonshot, right? Where, or maybe Elon would say Mars shot. But that's the big, hairy, audacious goal that you try to go from a personal perspective, right? So
No,
I
that's really
look
good
at it that way.
Yeah, and it's good advice too. It's like, how can you get more involved in community business, whatever it is, outside of your 9 to 5? I mean, I know everybody has like priorities and things like family that they have to take care of, personal, whatever it might be. But it's like, I can't tell you how many times I talk to people that are interested in it, maybe not starting their own business, but just like dabbling in that world and creating more ownership for them and creating more opportunity sets for financial independence, which is actually a big reason of why I wanted to do this podcast. It's like, I think that there's a lot of experiences that people have in life that shape that, and travel is a big part of it, right? It's like you're forced in these situations oftentimes when you're traveling, especially when you're traveling to places that aren't like the US, where that you just, life is inherently unpredictable, right? You're trying to cross a river with a raft that is only going to last 6 hours, and the journey's 8 hours or whatever it might be, right? So it's like you have to learn how to adapt, which are all great life skills and great skills for starting and running a business too, because there is no surefire course of action of how to grow and scale a business. It's a very windy road, as anybody
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. And people look at, investor decks and presentations and financial forecasts. Find me a financial forecast that actually comes true. All right. Like, this is what I think the business is going to do. Then, pro forma 5 years. And then look 5 years later. Oh, yeah. See, I matched it perfectly. No, you didn't. Like, no way. Never. Yeah. Never happened.
Well, this has been great. Thank you, Dan, for sharing your story and your inspiration. Any final thoughts of fun things or fun memories you had during your trip in Thailand? Just anything like.
Oh, we had so much fun. Meeting the people there was amazing. Some of the people are a little bit nervous, but I find that, wherever we traveled, whether it was Vietnam or Bali, or especially Vietnam, by the way, people wanted to practice English. When they saw an American, they wanted to practice their English. And I think that, there's a lot of perceptions about how we're seen overseas. And yeah, this was 30 years ago, but the ugly American doesn't have to be the persona that we take on. So keep that in mind. But I think travel often, and my advice would be travel often if you can, and experience new things, because it will teach you things about life, business, and everything. So
well, thank you. Have you been back since this trip?
I haven't been back. It's on my list. I think out of all the places that we went, I think Vietnam might be on my top of the list to go back to first. It was amazing.
Okay. Very cool. I've never been to Vietnam. It's high on my list too. Although everything's high on my list. So
yeah, there's a lot of places to go, but there's a lot of places in the United States to see too, which is, there's a lot of great things here too.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Dan. I appreciate you, and thank you for doing this.
Thanks so much. I appreciate being on.